Good evening, YouTube. How's everyone doing? Tonight, we have two Matts with us, but the Matt we're most interested in talking to is Matt from OATA. Good evening, Matt. How you doing?
Thanks very much. Yeah, not too bad. Not too bad. I'm interested to chat with the other Matt as well.
Yes, yeah. Well, I was going to come on to say, not that we don't want to talk to the other Matt, but we talk to him all the time. Yeah, I think we've got lots of questions for you as well.
Yes.
You're only with us for an hour tonight. So for those that normally watch the live stream, we're going to kind of mix it up a little bit, and we're going to launch straight into talking to Matt from OATA. And then we'll do all the normal nonsense at the end when Matt's gone. Not that we're trying to exclude you from it, but you don't have to listen to all our nonsense then. So,
Yes.
So, Matt, do you want to tell us a little bit about OATA, who they are, and how you got involved with them, and kind of what you do on a day-to-day basis?
Cool. So yeah, OATA stands for the Ornamental Aquatic Trade Association, which is quite a mouthful, which is why we say OATA. So we are both a representative body, but also a standard-setting body. So put simply, we've got members all over the UK in the aquatics industry. They all sign up to a code of conduct, but we also represent like the aquatics trades interests at a local, national, and UK level. So in terms of examples of what that looks like, that can be things like helping liaise with officials at the border, when things are getting like sort of stuck at the airport, that kind of thing. We'll talk to officials to try and smooth those processes. We'll provide input on like government policy. So government will sometimes ask for our advice on things like welfare, biosecurity, that kind of thing. Internationally, we'll feed into, say, CITES policy, for instance, although that's often quite challenging. A lot of what we do is counter lobbying effectively against anti-keeping organizations. Now they are very active and very well resourced, and they do represent a real threat to keeping of pet animals in the UK and around the world. Another thing that we do as well is like support the trade through, so alongside like the code of conduct, we also have lots of guidance materials for trade, customer care sheets, that kind of thing. So we do a lot there to try and assist trade as well, education, like training programs, that kind of thing. So that's what OATA does, like in a nutshell.
Yeah.
So I've worked for OATA for about 5 years. I started off as the scientific and technical advisor. Before that, I'd been lecturing marine biology at the University of Essex. And then last year, our former chief executive, Dominic Whitley, he retired. So I stepped into his role. So that's a very quick overview of me, I guess, and the organisation.
Excellent.
Very good.
So moving on, I've written down a bunch of questions here. I think probably one of the big topics that certainly has been kind of going through my head is understanding the CITES rules and translating the kind of formal paper that says exactly what is allowed and what isn't, and kind of translating that into something that someone like me can actually understand.
Yes.
And you were saying earlier that you're starting to work towards putting out things on social media to try and explain this a little bit easier for the layperson.
Yeah, so I mean, we've just had an event, what's called the CITES Conference of the Parties. Now, CITES is an international convention on wildlife trade, effectively. So, and the mechanism by which it regulates trade in wildlife, so sustainable trade in wildlife, is through what you call the appendices. So you have Appendix 1, Appendix 2, and Appendix 3. And effectively, Appendix 1, you have species listed on these appendices. Appendix 1 is the highest level of protection that CITES can offer, and effectively that means that for most species, wild take is not allowed. Captive bred take is in Appendix 1, and what happens is the country of export has to make what is called a non-detriment finding for a trade in a species of Appendix 1, and then the country of import also has to make a non-detriment finding. But this is under CITES rules, yeah?
Yeah.
Then on Appendix 2, which is a slightly lower level of protection, so this is what corals are under, for instance, the CITES rules say that the country of export has to make a non-detriment finding, and that can either be the country of export has satisfied themselves that the captive breeding operation is sound and operating in under good standards, and it's not taking significant amounts of animals from the wild and so, like, it's passing them off as captive bred, that kind of thing. Yeah. But you can also get trade in wild collected organisms under Appendix 2, but they have to be under quota. So the country has to have done an assessment and set a quota of some sort. And then Appendix 3 is more a monitoring tool. So it's essentially just a notification of a species being traded. So there isn't a requirement under CITES for any like risk assessment on those species. Now, these Conference of the Parties that happen every 3 to 4 years, that is when parties, which are effectively countries, vote on what species should be added to those lists or moved from one list to another potentially. Yeah. So that's what goes on at those Conference of the Parties. But also what happens at those Conference of the Parties is that's where any rule changes on the trade in certain species might occur as well. So, for example, one of the things that was debated at the most recent Conference of the Parties was some changes in the definitions associated with trading live coral under CITES. So that's something we engaged in quite a bit. So I don't know whether or not that was, I've just bombarded people with technicality, or whether or not that was easy to understand.
That was nice and clear. Can you explain to everyone why our rulings are slightly different to European rulings? Because I guess people are getting confused with why can they have it and why we can't, etc.
Right. So the difference. So I've just described what the rules are, what the requirements are under CITES, in a very loose, simplified way. There's a lot more technicality in it, but I'm going to try and keep it brief. So those are the CITES rules. Now, the European Union has additional rulings. So effectively, for Appendix 2 species, the EU will make a non-detriment finding on an Appendix 2 species, as well as the exporting country. So even if the exporting country says, "Oh, we've done an assessment and we're happy that this trade can continue," the EU's rules say that no, we want to do our own assessment of that particular trade species country combination, that trade flow effectively. Now, the UK obviously used to be in the EU, and that was the way that the UK implemented CITES. Now, the UK, after we exited the EU, kept that same ruling. But the difference is now the UK is the one that does the assessment of the trade, not the scientific review group, which the EU scientific review group, which does it over there. So we're in a situation at the moment, effectively, where we have some legacy positions from when we were in the EU on certain species, but we also have updated opinions as well on some other species. And that's effectively where the UK authorities have done a scientific assessment, and they're not happy that a trade flow can come in without it being a detriment to the wild population, or they don't have enough information to prove that it's not detrimenting the wild population. That what I've stated there is the UK position, I would say.
Yeah.
Do you think they will ease, or do you think they will get tighter over time? Was it hard to say?
I think that's it's quite generalised. I mean, do you mean CITES rules in general, or
I
mean
mean
the UK's position?
UK's position.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's very difficult because the UK. I mean, the UK would, if I was to put that question to an official whose job this is, the official would turn around and say, we judge, we regularly review all these different trade flows, and we use the best evidence available, and we make our judgments independently based on that. So I think it's very difficult for me to kind of like make that suggestion, because that's what they would probably say. Do you see what I mean? I realise that's sort of a cop-out answer, but it's also not really necessarily for me to.
You probably don't have the answer. You don't have the answer. So there's no point telling us it's going to get easier, and you don't know. It's not actual facts.
No. So,
I think one of my kind of questions to build on that is that doesn't seem to be any distinction on where the coral is coming from and to. So there's restrictions on what can come into the UK, whether that's coming from Indonesia, Australia, or Belgium, or Luxembourg. It could be aquacultured in a tank in Luxembourg, completely landlocked. It's not a natural in that environment. It's not a detriment to the wild population, but we still have the rules. Now, I'm trying to work out, is that purely from a like compliance, how the hell do we know where it's come from kind of angle, or is there another reason behind that?
Yeah, I mean, as I said, they judge them. That's an interesting one. I mean, they will judge each case on its own individual merits, I guess. And I think one of the things that CITES authorities are often concerned about is the potential for something to be labelled as captive bred when actually it's been taken from the wild, and it actually has been taken from the wild and then passed off as captive bred. So I mean, if you think about it with corals is quite a challenging one to deal with, because you could take some coral from the wild, you could frag it up and then glue it on some bases, and then sort of claim, oh, well, that's captive bred. Now, one thing that Border Force have developed, we've helped develop for Border Force in conjunction with CFAS, is a bit of a guide which effectively allows Border Force to be able to sort of tell when things have been aquaculture. So that's things like biofouling on the base, evidence of like fresh growth, that kind of thing. So, and we had members from our board like input onto that as well. So
I think sorry, Matt. For me, it's like we were talking just before the live. Where I live right by the ferry. There is a ferry that goes twice a day to Holland, and there is an amazing shop in the Netherlands that sell all aquaculture corals. And I would love one day to be able to go there and buy from that shop and bring them back with me. But obviously that's then subject to all the CITES regulations and everything at the moment. Is there any way that we could provide enough evidence to maybe kind of see a way in the future that maybe we can do these kind of things?
So I mean, I'm unclear from that example why that necessarily isn't allowed. Now, what I would say to caveat that is, if you wanted to drive over, pick up a load of corals and then drive them back, you know, and without any paperwork or anything like that, that obviously would be illegal, right? Because they are a CITES species, and as soon as you do an international movement, there has to be a risk assessment done effectively.
Yeah.
Now, if you wish to import or move corals, you can go on the government website and you can look for it. You can go on the government website, you can look at the advice that they have, and you can get in contact with the UK government and say, this is what I want to do, this is where I want to get things from, and you can make an application to move things over. And as I said, they will then judge it on those merits.
Yeah.
So now the problem is obviously that is quite onerous, obviously, in terms of like there's lots of different forms there. If you're not familiar with those forms, I mean, I'm not familiar with those forms myself. Like I've never done an import. I view things in a very strategic way. I don't do the nuts and bolts stuff. But you could go and get advice from that. And then also there is a cost element. So you have to pay to get an import
for the process.
And I guess the question then becomes effectively, are you is it cost effective to do that, and also there's other authorizations you need to have in order to import aquatic animals as well. So there's a reason why everybody isn't doing it, right? Because there's obviously lots of rules associated with it which you have to meet. So but in terms of that specific example, I don't know, but you'd probably have to A, get yourself set up properly, and B, seek advice on it. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah. I just, there's people that have been doing it in this hobby for quite some time. They can remember going to Germany and Holland and just bringing it back with them because we're all part of the EU. And the only difference is we've left. Goods, right? Yeah, we've left the EU, basically.
Yeah, so it's free movement of goods, effectively. So, but what with the EU in that situation, the EU has done their scientific assessment, and whenever something comes into the EU, that assessment's been done, and then it can move freely within it. Is what the assumption is.
Yeah.
If you could fast forward 10 years, what would success be for OATA?
That is an excellent but also tricky question. I think a large part of it is in a way is sort of things standing still. There is as I mentioned earlier, there are a lot of anti-keeping organizations out there, and they are lobbying quite hard for restrictions on trade. So, for example, up in Scotland at the moment, there is a campaign called Don't Pet Me, which is effectively campaigning for a ban on the majority of pet species and wanting to limit it down to a very narrow list of species you can keep. Now, when we were at CITES, there was like a discussion event, and one of these anti-keeping organizations said their goal with this policy would be to reduce the number of pet species in trade to say 20, 30 species. Now, that would obviously be catastrophic for our trade. When you think about it, we trade in a very huge diversity of species. And that's part of that's part of the joy of the trade, but also that's part of the benefits of the trade as well. People learn about conservation, diversity, all these different things. There are benefits to that diversity as well. You think about people that are collecting fish on reefs. They're often in very low income areas. That kind of thing provides them an income. Also means that they're not negatively impacting the reef in comparison to other things as well. So I guess so. In terms of achievements, being able to say, okay, we've held back this onslaught of anti-keeping policy, that is an achievement. Now, I realise that effectively you could say that's sort of standing still. Now, I mean, there are other things that I guess that we would like to see. So things like we'd like welfare policy for like selling animals as pets rationalised, so it's actually delivering welfare and it's not just needlessly ticking boxes. I think there's a lot of problems in regulation of that. So, and I guess an achievement for us is a trade and a hobby that's thriving, and people continuing to keep fish and corals and inverts and plants and all that kind of thing.
What can hobbyists do to help that message?
So, I mean, I would say support your local retailers. Particularly OATA retailers. I would say, they're doing very good work, and it's a difficult environment out there at the moment for some people, because cost of living affects us all, and at the end of the day, the trade is it's luxury, right? So and those are the things that kind of get hit most when it comes to cost of living. So I would say if you can support your shops, support your OATA retailers, then definitely do that.
Lovely. Good. Come on, Steve, I'll give you a break.
Kind of expanding on the aquacultured coral kind of side of it, a new trend that we're seeing a lot more of is spawned corals, where they've never been in the ocean before. They've been spawned in a lab, and there's obviously no detrimental effect to the ocean from the taking them kind of side of things. Then,
we are aware of more of that going on. I think. Sorry, was there a question there? Or
well, it's just more about how will CITES work with that? And, because it's a bit different.
Yeah, so I think within CITES, what you have is these things called source codes. So things like W, which is for wild collection, and then you've got C for captive bred, and then you've got F, which is this weird kind of middle ground where they can't fully call it captive bred and they can't but it's not wild either. So things like your maricultured corals from like tables in Indonesia, they come under F a lot of the time as well. Now, there is an awareness within CITES about like the growth of this stuff, and it did come up at the most recent COP. And when the source code, so how that animal is sourced, does come into the assessment that governments make about whether or not to allow something in or not. I mean, one thing that I would kind of sort of say on all these different sourcing methods is that it's not a case of, as I think I've mentioned before, it's not a case of it being like black and white, so one is much better than the other. It's often a lot more nuanced than that. So if you think about like wild collection for corals, right? Now that it's not necessarily a bad thing if it is being done in a sustainable way. So it's being done under quota, so there's not going to be any detriment to those wild populations. Also, if you think about it in terms of you're providing a livelihood to people, particularly if you've got alternative livelihoods that might be more damaging, that kind of thing. So in a way, a lot of that wild collection, and this is true for fish as well, is passively conserving the reef, and then on top of that you also get reef restoration as well. So a lot of maricultured coral, so those corals that are grown on tables in Indonesia, there's a legal requirement for a percentage of those maricultured corals to go back to reef restoration. Right. So you've got that element as well. So I think when it comes to sourcing corals, I think none of these things existing in isolation, and I think there are some species that are going to be ideal candidates for aquaculture, like on land, effectively, and that'll often be species that would be like difficult to frag, that kind of thing. So the growth of sexual reproduction for those species is probably quite a good thing, but you don't necessarily want to throw the baby out with the bathwater and get rid of these other sourcing methods, because there are benefits to them as well.
Yes. Yeah, and I think one of the things that is going through my mind when you look at what you're seeing in the news and everything is that there could be a time in the future, in the not too distant future, where some of these corals will only be able to exist in people's tanks, because the they just won't be able to survive in the ocean anymore. And you know, it's almost like a bit of a biobank that could reseed when we've sorted everything out and stopped setting fire to the planet, kind of thing.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, one place, I mean, this you've sort of jogged my memory a little bit, because this is something that because you were asking, Matt, about, you know, where would you like to be in 10 years, what does success look like, all that kind of thing. One of the things that we would love to kind of like sort of push forward, and it's something that we've had conversations about, but we're still very much in the infancy of, is this idea of getting the trade integral to coral reef restoration. So in such a way that if you were to curtail trade, you'd negatively be impacting coral reefs, right? So and that is where you would get coral mariculture and coral aquaculture linked up with specific coral reef restoration efforts. So you then have, where you have areas of degraded reef, the coral trade can effectively be providing the volume of corals to help restore those reefs, but also the diversity of corals as well. Because if you try and restore a reef with just all Acropora, there's going to be a glass ceiling as to how well that reef can bounce back. Whereas if you've got a diversity of species that are going back there, you're going to get a lot better outcome in terms of restoring that reef, not just from a conservation biological point of view as well, but also the people that rely on the reef. And if you could end up in this nice circle of where you have degraded reef, coral trade comes in, provides diversity, that reef improves, and you get all those the fish populations return, the diversity of fish populations return, you then have a source of income for local people to potentially collect those fish, and then collect those fish in a sustainable, non-impactful way. And then it becomes like this cycle of just like self-improvement. So, and those people that are collecting those fish, they want the reef to be pristine, because that's how they get their diversity. So you can, I mean, that's a bit of a, I don't know, I don't think it's a pipe dream. I think it's achievable. It'll take a lot of work to get there, but I think that's definitely something that's eminently achievable. And trade can do that through all these different sourcing methods and all these new technologies, that kind of thing. So, I mean, I don't confess to be a coral expert by any means. Freshwater is where I tend to lean. I've kept marine a long time in the past, but ended up being for me it ended up being a bit too much work. I mean, I've often tempted to go back, but then also, I don't know, it's just funny time.
Yeah, I mean, I think you can see that myself, Dan, and Matt have all got these Reefy AF tops on. The line of merchandise that Reef AF do, all of the profit that's made from that is donated to the Great Barrier Reef Foundation.
Oh, fantastic.
And we're all kind of really into trying to improve things. And I think if there was a way to legally get some of these corals that are kind of on the naughty list at the moment, that supported the trade, and you know, they were like an official way to get them through, because it's been recognized that all of this effort is going into making it sustainable and improving the reef and everything. I think a lot of people would be happy to pay the extra to get something that supports that kind of way of working.
Yeah, and I mean that's one thing that, you know, I guess we hope is going to develop more and more. I think is that growth of the non-detrimental ways of sourcing things. So
yeah.
What is the biggest myth about OATA? Is there anything that you can myth bust while you're here that people say, oh, they do this, and you're like, we don't actually do that. Or they do this, no, we don't actually do that.
I don't know, there's quite a few. I mean, I think a lot of people assume we're a lot bigger than we are. I mean, I've had students get in contact saying, can I do some work experience in your labs? And I'm like, you can come and clean my fish tank if you want. So we're only a team of 5. So it's it's myself, the 2 scientific staff, a person that does PR, and we've got our office manager as well who handles all the membership, that kind of thing. So we do, we do get a lot done with not very much of us. We're also not necessarily, we're not an enforcement agency or anything like that. We don't have an inspectorate. So in terms of like our code of conduct, that kind of thing, members will sign it, and that is members will sign it and agree to adhere to it. But if people have any issues with what they think's going on, they have a look at our code of conduct and they think, oh, I don't think that person's doing the right thing. They get in they get in contact with us. So, but we're not, like I said, we're not well resourced enough to be an inspectorate. So that's one thing that I would say. Those are probably sort of 2 of the bigger myths, I would say.
Yeah.
So you're doing visits, but you're not doing them like randomly. Mystery shops or such.
No, nothing like that. So I think, like, if we go and visit a member, it's because we want to talk to them about the pressures that they're facing and find out what are the things that we can do to help. That's what, and to learn more about their businesses and the way that they do things, and also use our channels to kind of like shout about the good work that the industry does. So that's, if we're doing a visit, it's not because we're there to crack the whip. It's there because we want to champion people. That's our job.
Yeah. Very good.
Yeah.
Yeah. You mentioned earlier that you're sometimes called in by border agencies and stuff. Is this if someone's imported a load of stuff and they're a little bit unsure as to whether it matches what they said it should?
Not quite in that sense. So in terms of like the nuts and bolts of what goes on the ground, that's not necessary. Like we don't have like the red Batman phone that rings from Border Force being like, we don't know what this coral is. We don't that. That's not,
Damn it.
Down quick. So there's nothing like that goes on. But what we will do is, if we're aware that there are bottlenecks in the system, we will talk to the relevant officials about it and try and work out a way of smoothing out those bottlenecks. We are an industry that relies very heavily on things being imported and things moving smoothly across the border. And often, sometimes that goes smoothly and sometimes that doesn't. And the problem is when you've got animals that are, effectively, sitting in a bag, if you've got delays in that system, that can cause quite an impact. So we do a lot of work to try and sort of improve that flow through. And we work a lot with importers on that kind of thing as well. So it's more higher level policy stuff rather than us, us a bit rolling up sleeves and getting mucked in and being like, let's move these boxes or anything like that. It's not quite what we do.
Interestingly, I got a jellyfish tank not so long ago, and I wanted some moon jellyfish for it, and I was just really struggling to find anyone. Where I had loads of different shops, nobody seemed to have any jellyfish. So I went on internet, searched jellyfish, moon jellyfish, found this website. Fantastic, English website, ding ding ding, ordered, placed my order. Then I got my tracking number and I started tracking it, and it said, your package has left Prague. Like,
interesting.
It's what? And it was supposed to be delivered the next day, and it didn't turn up. And I contacted the shipping company and said, where is it? Because it's like live jellyfish. You can't, and this was in the middle of summer, and moon jellyfish don't like the heat too much.
Yes.
And I contacted them about it. Like, there's a welfare issue here that I really need to get them. And then they said, well, we don't accept livestock, so I don't know how they got it in. Then we look and they declared it as acrylic aquariums. And it sat in their warehouse for a week in the summer. Someone had written on the box, because I was obviously talked to them on the phone and said, look, if you don't get these to me soon, they're going to be dead. And they'd written on the box, dead jellyfish, dispose. And then someone had opened the box a week later to dispose of them and realised that they were still alive. And then they delivered them to me because they're like, well, what the hell do we do with them? And they delivered them to me and they were still alive.
Wow. Wow.
Great.
But I mean, there's
resilience
things
of
like that
jellyfish,
that
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I must confess, I don't know what the I must confess, I don't know off the top of my head what the rules would be around jellyfish, because you have, as I've mentioned before, as I mentioned earlier, like Animal Welfare Act, pertains to vertebrates and pertains
Yes.
to fish. So I know with fish, you can only transport things through authorized couriers. So, for example, sending fish through Royal Mail is an absolute no-no because of the situation you've described. Because
yes,
if someone's not in, it'll either get left outside, or it can either get left outside and be cold, or it'll go back to a depot and then it'll get cold. That's why things like sending raw fish through Royal Mail is a no-no. For inverts, I must confess, I probably want to go away and do a little bit of homework on that, and understand what the rules are, and what the rules are on that one, especially for jellyfish as well, because I think with like things like jellyfish and coral, that kind of thing, they don't have a central nervous system, so they're not they wouldn't be covered by the Animal Welfare Act. Is very much leans towards vertebrates, although things like crustaceans are now kind of have been brought in as well, but they are they do have a central nervous system, they've got a brain and all that kind of thing. So that's interesting.
In terms of shop support, is there any guidance to shops? So if they were unsure on quarantine processes or how to treat incoming imported fish, is that something you would be guiding the shop or giving support to say, think about this, look at this, do this, or have this behind the scenes?
Yeah, so I think, I mean, we've got lots of different guidance that we make available for shops. One of the things that we've got is our biosecurity guide, and that's quite a thick document. And essentially, part of the reason that we do it is it helps shops meet their licensing obligations. All shops should have some kind of biosecurity plan. So that biosecurity guide helps them achieve that, and it's got a checklist on it and that kind of thing as well. So we do offer guidance on that kind of thing. I think there are some things where we like to provide guidance to shops on a lot of these things. We don't like to be overly prescriptive, because a lot of the time, these are people with many years of experience, and they know what they're doing when it comes to acclimating fish and that kind of thing. It's not necessarily for us to say you must do it way X. I mean, one thing that you guys probably all know as being fish keepers is that you can often ask the same question to a number of different shops, and they'll often all come to different ways of doing it and different conclusions of doing it. Or sometimes they'll often all come to they all end up in the same place, but they've all got there in different ways, And so I think we do try and avoid being too prescriptive, saying there's a one size fits all approach, because that's not for us. But in terms of guidance, we do our best to address things that trade are struggling with, or trade need to do as part of their legal obligations. But I mean, it's one of those things. If there is anything out there that people need and they think there's a bit of a gap there in knowledge or provision, let us know, and we'll have a look into things, and we'll try our best to find an answer for people.
Makes sense. Okay.
Dan, have you got any questions? You've been sat there very quietly.
Been listening intently. I was going to say, one thing I will say is a lot of the guidance for the shops and the sort of code of conduct information is actually on the website. So if anyone wants to kind of dive a little bit deeper into it, go over to the website and have a look, because I was having a browse through late afternoon. But I was just going to say, Matt, in terms of captive bred fish, and I suppose particularly more fish, because I'm a bit more of a fish guy. How important do you see that in terms of the sort of future of, I mean, in particular for marine, and I suppose it's a little bit, because for freshwater, they've been doing it for quite a number of years on a lot more variety of species and different fish types. But I mean, for the marine side of things, how do you see that sort of being an importance going forward? Because we are starting to see more and more different types of captive bred fish now.
Yeah, I mean it's a real interesting one in terms of, you know, like relative merits, like we spoke, as I spoke about earlier. It's not, wild collection inherently isn't necessarily a bad thing as long as it's done sustainably. And, you know, so, and we do champion that quite a lot. Recognize that in freshwater, there's a lot of things that are captive bred, simply because their life cycles are a lot easier to replicate in captivity for freshwater than they are marines. You know, we don't like, it's very difficult to replicate that. It's challenging to replicate that planktonic lifestyle cycle, but, you know, people are doing it more and more. I think there is a question over the like economic viability of a lot of it as well. So you think about something like a green chromis or like a yellowtail blue dams or that kind of thing. You're talking about a species that are very, very widespread. For their body size, they're very fecund. They produce a lot of eggs, that kind of thing. They can be harvested sustainably, and, you know, like they are. So, but what you would need to invest to breed those species, you would then have to charge quite a large amount of money for an individual. Now, the question then comes, why would you go through all that effort when you can sustainably get it from the wild? Particularly as well when you add in the added dimension of the, you know, the social and conservation benefits of wild collection. Now, that's not to say that, you know, there aren't some species that are well suited to captive breeding. I mean, you take things like Banggai cardinal fish, for instance, you know, clownfish, that kind of thing. Those things have been done very well at scale. So it's not a case of us saying that, no, captive breeding is a bad thing. I think it really, you need to do you need to do like the sums in your head, and a lot of companies do, over whether or not it is worth investing that time and effort. Is the demand there when you've got the cheaper, sustainable alternative of wild collection? One thing that does throw a spanner in the works, though, is the potential for things like CITES listings. So if you look at seahorses, for instance, before those species were CITES listed, they were predominantly wild collected. As soon as CITES listing came in, most seahorse sourcing moved to captive collection, and initially a lot of that captive collection moved out of source countries or out of those communities over to, you know, Western countries, like Europe, America, that kind of thing. It is moving back a bit now, but, you know, that's where it goes. If you do end up in a situation where something is CITES listed, the trade in it often ends up transitioning towards captive breeding, even if it's only on Appendix 2, because it's a lot easier to demonstrate that non-detriment finding for a captive bred specimen. So the thing that will be interesting to see is 3-4 years down the line, when we're at the next COP, are there any listing proposals that come forward on marine ornamentals? Because that may well affect like the species how those species are sourced.
So how we talked about seahorses a minute ago, and how when they became CITES listed, the focus moved to captive bred. What kind of impact did that have on the people that were sourcing them in the wild before? Did that have a detrimental effect to what they were doing? And
I mean, effectively, like they were no longer like able to make a living from the trade in live seahorses, or it became very difficult to. So one thing, so that obviously would have an impact on those people. One thing so lots of reports have been done since the listing, and the major threat, the volume of species taken for live seahorse trade was absolutely dwarfed by the significantly larger volume taken for traditional medicine, dried. Now, if you're catching seahorses for the purposes of dry trade, there's not the incentive to be delicate in your collection methods. So a lot of seahorses are collected in benthic trawls, or benthic trawls either targeted or as often as bycatch, which is often a lot more environmentally damaging as well. So and that trade still persists, but it's illegal. So effectively, that seahorse listing hasn't really delivered conservation benefits, because it's driven something that you wanted to dissuade just underground, which is continuing, but you've also taken away the sustainable way of doing it from people that relied on it as well. So yeah, I mean, so it's often, I think with CITES, it's we want trade in wildlife to be sustainable. That's something that we should all agree on. But I think often the way that these things get pushed, like the unforeseen or sometimes foreseen unintended consequences end up going down the line. Now, as an organization, we do try and shout about those before these decisions are made, but whether or not we get listened to is a different matter. I mean, it's when it comes to having these conversations at this big international policy level, it's like turning around a juggernaut sometimes.
Yeah.
Do you ever keep your ear to the ground on certain areas? Like, I mean, the Hawaii ban has been in place for some time now. Do you ever get to hear any kind of information on sort of whether that's going to be lifted at any point, or does it fairly just stay to the sort of high end?
Yeah, I mean, so we work with colleagues in the US, so basically like the US version of us, Pet Advocacy Network, and US ARC as well, US Aqua, who are involved in the legal challenge against those, and untold amounts of money have been thrown at proper scientific environmental impact assessments on that fishery, which have all clearly set quotas which are well below maximum sustainable yield, and all proven that you can have sustainable take, all that kind of thing. And I think those challenges are ongoing. I think it's very difficult for me to kind of sort of turn around and say how close, if at all, we are to that change and that ban being lifted. It's one of those areas where, again, you have a lot of the antis lobbying the other way. And I think a lot of those organisations will tug on the heartstrings quite a lot. So it's like, oh, these animals are being ripped from the ocean, and all that kind of this often very emotive language, and which we try and combat with the best evidence possible, and so do like people that we work with. But often people that legislate for this stuff often get drawn in by the emotive stuff, and it's it's that whole thing around nuance, isn't it? You say, oh, one side saying these animals are being ripped out from the ocean. You're like, oh yeah, but actually, the assessment's been done, and it's under maximum sustainable yield, and all this kind of stuff. And it becomes a more challenging narrative to challenge.
Do you think the best we can hope for is that countries get a quota, and so they have a quota of fish coming in, and then once they've hit that quota, the door's shut for the next season? So then it's basically, you're getting a quota, you've hit your quota, then we'll let them repopulate, and then we can take again.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think if the challenge in Hawaii succeeds, I'm going to talk in generalities because I don't know. I've read the report, but it was quite a while ago, so I won't go into the specifics. But the quota is for a certain amount of collection of fish. As I understand it, it's not you fish until you hit your. It's not a case of fishing until you hit your limit. I think it's spread over a period of time, and also it's not just quotas. It's also it's closed. You've got areas that are closed to fishing, so you've got no take zones as well. So the idea is the no take zones effectively seed the areas that are fished, but also you have size limits as well. So rather than so this is the thing that one of the things I did my PhD on, is the idea that you can be more sustainable if you leave the big adults and you leave the babies, but you take like medium-sized individuals. So because it's less impactful. So you've got there's under the environmental impact assessment, there's like a narrow size range at which you can target. You would be able to target. So the idea is the big adults that can produce the most eggs, they're the ones that they're protected from harvest. So it basically fosters more sustainability. So that, that is the goal and that is the aim, and that would be fantastic if we get there. But I'm probably not the right person to ask in terms of making a judgment on how close that is.
Yeah.
I could probably talk to people and find out for you. But yeah, I probably
think that's what everyone's keen on, because obviously they look at a yellow tang and a lot of hobbyists are like, oh, they were £30, now they're £300. And I think what they're hopefully, thinking is once the door opens, the yellow tang's 30 quid again. It's not going to happen. It's not going to be like that. But they're like, is that ever going to get close? I guess.
Yeah, I think it's as you say, it's the problem is, I guess, that I'm assuming the price is probably is reflective of supply, right? And like the investment needed to actually produce these things at scale. Like I said, that is the hope, definitely. But we have to wait and see, I'm afraid. Like I said, I'm more than happy going away and actually asking the question, and I could probably put you in touch with people that know more than me.
And I think even if everything opened back up and you could get wild caught yellow tangs again tomorrow, I think there'll still be £300 while people are still willing to spend £300. There's supply and demand. If people are willing to pay that amount of money, people will still charge that amount of money.
Yeah, I can't. It's not for me to predict the price fluctuations of fish, I'm afraid.
Yeah. We've got a bit off subject there.
No, that's fine.
I've got a few questions that I've been marking in the chat, and I've got a couple more myself. So, one of the things that I think we're all really interested in is, we all want, and I think part of it is that as soon as you can't have something, you want it more. Human nature, isn't it? So there are things that are out there at the moment that we're not allowed to have that everybody really wants.
ACANs.
What can people do to help influence that journey? We talked earlier about it being sufficient scientific evidence. So how do we ensure that level of scientific evidence is provided so that the right decisions could be made? Because I think that's the only way we could influence that decision.
Yeah, that's a real kind of difficult question. If you take species that are banned for like entry into the UK at the moment, which so let's take some of the species from Australia, right? It's not really something that the hobby or the keeping community can feasibly influence, and those conversations are going on. So though the UK government undoubtedly are in regular conversations with the Australian government, and the UK government will be asking them lots of questions and probably asking for data, and the Australian government will be doing their best to try and get hold of that data, and also look at alternative alternative methods of sourcing, all that kind of thing. So I think it's not I'd love to be able to say to you, there's this fund that you can donate to, which will allow a researcher to go out and look at all this stuff. That doesn't necessarily exist. But those conversations are going on. It's just these, because they're often very long and protracted conversations, and all government agencies around the world, they're not. Corals is one part of the thing that they're dealing with. You'll have a person that's working on corals one day, and then they'll be working on elephant ivory the next, and live tigers, and cacti the next day. Do you know what I mean? So there's there's all these different pressures there. So I can tell you conversations probably are occurring, but the pace at which change happens is never as quick as people want it to be.
And I think if we stay on the Australian coral situation, the UK government wants to know how many are out there to make that assessment and whether it's viable to take them. But if
yeah, I mean, what I will say is I don't those conversations in terms of what it is the UK government are looking for isn't something that's not information that they share with us. So that is conversations that are kind of kept confidential between the government and them. So it's probably not. I should probably say it's not for me to be able to say why exactly it is that the UK government have issues with how those species are sourced. I mean, I don't know I don't know to what extent that they will be drawn on it, to be honest with you.
We need the next Prime Minister to be a reef keeper. That's what you're telling me. So, Steve, up your stairs.
Yeah. I'll do it.
That'll help us.
Yeah. I have a feeling the Speaker of the House of Commons might keep fish.
Oh,
I think he's got parrots as well. He's a big animal lover, the Speaker.
That'll do.
Good. Yeah. Right, I'm gonna go to some of these ones that I've got in the chat. So the first one came from Liam, who in the past had a shark. It got way too big for his tank. He had a lot of trouble trying to find a good home for it. And he then started to campaign about the ease of which he was able to get a shark. So he was kind of wanting to know, what are your thoughts on sharks being bought in, and what I think it's to do with what kind of, can we give them the right welfare, meet the right welfare standards.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I mean, like, there are sharks and there are sharks, right? Like, there's a hell of a lot. There's a big difference between a great white and a bamboo shark. So, so I'm not sure what species he's referring to there. Now, there are
the smaller one.
Yeah. I mean, there are people in the UK that do have very large aquaria, right? Now, I don't know how long ago this occurred, but I mean, I would be surprised these days if like major suppliers would source a large growing shark for you, unless you were a public aquarium. Is what I would say. But there are obviously some species that are that little bit smaller, like things like, I can't remember the name. I've got a picture of it in my head. But there are some species of shark which effectively they'll grow to about 3 foot. They'll grow to about 3 foot long. Now I realise for most keepers that is obviously too big for your tank. But there are people out there with aquariums that can cater for that size animal. So what the key thing here is, and this is something that we're very passionate about, is ensuring that keepers have the right information to make an informed choice about what it is that they're purchasing. So that's why we've got things like the care sheets, for instance. We're also involved in a scheme called Pet Know-How, which we're hoping is going to get utilised more and more by the trade. And effectively, what that does is they'd look at a care sheet and then they do a comprehension test to test that they've actually understood the knowledge in their care sheet and what's needed for that animal and its care requirements, that kind of thing. It then gives you a certificate or a digital certificate, which you can then show to your retailer and be like, look, on this species, I've done my homework and I've demonstrated that I understand the needs of the species.
That's a good idea. Yeah.
So, those are things that we're really quite passionate about. So I think the diversity of trade, the diversity of what we've got in trade, I think is a good thing. It keeps people excited, it keeps people enthused, it helps people learn a lot, and I think it can mean better welfare outcomes, but we want to make sure that people are well educated as well. And I think that's what our care sheets and that Pet Know-How scheme is kind of all about.
It would be, I think Liam's petition was about trying to put a rule in to try and have them to order. So you would have to supply, like, this is my tank, this is how I'm going to look after it. So you are basically saying, I have the care requirements for this animal before it's brought into the UK and put in a 2-foot tank.
Yeah, exactly. And now I think that I would say that I would like to think, particularly these days, that the average retailer is asking those questions first. I mean, there is a requirement there is a licensing requirement for shops to make sure that an animal is going to a suitable home, and that prospective keepers are being provided care information. Now, that care information can look like it can come in multiple different ways, but that is already a legal requirement. Now, in terms of the ordering side of things, I don't really know. Again, I would be very surprised that people are getting those species in now, as in the ones that grow exceptionally large, if it's not being ordered in advance. I mean, I'm trying to think when I was last in retail, which is a bit in 2020, 2021, and we never kept in. We had a marine section, and we never kept in things like your someone help me out with this. I'm thinking like bamboo shark-esque, but slightly big. We'd never keep in something like that. So we had people that ask, and some people were, some people knew what they needed, and some people
Epaulet shark.
That's what I thought. Epaulet shark.
Yeah. So some people knew. Some people, knew what they needed, and some people didn't. And once you educate, I'd say most of the time, once you educate people and say this grows quite large, you are going to need a tank which is going to accommodate this size animal. Most people go, or maybe I'll go for something else.
Yeah,
because they're not expensive.
No.
So well, I guess they're in terms of, I suppose they're relatively easy to collect, right? Because effectively it's just a mermaid's purse. So so there are checks and balances within the system already. I think one of the things I guess a lot of people don't necessarily realise that there are requirements as part of like pet shop licensing that mean shops have to do their due diligence and they have to provide care information. Now, sometimes that's obviously takes the form of like a care sheet, a leaflet, or whatever it might be. But as we've spoken about, because of that diversity of species in trade, often it's a combination of written information as well as that bespoke knowledge that experienced people that work in shops can provide in terms of, like the compatibility, that kind of thing. Like I'm sure you guys all have this as well. You've probably all have this kind of innate like knowledge of, this species of angel doesn't get on, typically, is really dodgy with this species of coral, and that isn't something that you can necessarily have in a care sheet, but that is something that's in the knowledge of someone that's selling it to you. So that is also something that constitutes care information, right?
Yes. Yeah. Perfect. So I've got one more question from someone, and then we'll kind of start to let you disappear.
It's all right.
So I've got a question here from Eric, and this popped up when we were talking about the yellow tangs and about this kind of petitioning about the release of some of the restrictions on aquatic trade animals. So I'm not quite sure, Eric, whether this was to do with the yellow tangs or whether it was a coincidence that this popped up at that time.
So I think in terms of like yellow tangs and Hawaii, like JNCC wouldn't have a view on this because they're not CITES controlled species. Like the reason why you can't get yellow tangs from Hawaii is because of a local government. It's because of a local government ruling. That's not necessarily due to JNCC. If you got in contact with JNCC saying, "Why can't I get yellow tangs?" they'd be like, "What's a yellow tang?" Or maybe you might get someone that's a bit more knowledgeable, potentially. But I would say that they wouldn't have a view on that. In terms of some of the other stuff, like corals, for anything CITES listed, you can get in contact with JNCC. You can get in contact with JNCC about that. Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
So, although one thing I would say is that if you do have specific queries on that stuff, you can always get in contact with us as well. So because it might be that we can give you a quicker answer than what JNCC can, because as I said before, they are dealing with cacti, they're dealing with elephant ivory, they're dealing with Brazilian rosewoods, they're dealing with corals, they're dealing with all sorts. So it might be that it might be a simple question that we can answer for you, and if we don't know the answer, we'll be like, get in contact with JNCC. So hope that helps.
Yeah.
If say we walked into, just before you go, if we walked into a shop, we call it something, we're not going to repeat what we call it, not a very good shop, and they're not one of your members, could you, if we reported them to you because we saw bad practice, is that something you would do, or is that as a organisation?
We do report non-compliance to to the relevant officials and relevant authorities. Yes, I think one of the key things that we do is people report non-compliance to us, and one of the things that I guess means we've got a good working relationship with a lot of these officials is that when we get something in, we will go through it and we'll basically see, like, we will be sometimes we're often able to head off some queries at the pass and say, oh, actually that's fine because of this bit or this bit of legislation, or it might be that there's not quite the level of information that government would need to do something about it, in which case we might come back to you and say, have you got this information, have you got that information, that kind of thing. So
that's what the hobbyist could do, though. The hobbyist could
effectively, that's something that people are welcome to do, and we do share that intelligence with the relevant authorities. But it obviously depends what that intelligence is. I think sometimes things get shared with us and we don't. Sometimes things get shared with us, and it can be, people like, I reckon that doesn't look right, and often it's not. That's not the case.
Yeah.
Or sometimes it looks like it might not be right, but I've not necessarily been given the granularity of information that I need to be able to pass it on to a regulator, because I think as I said, a lot of these are very resource pressed organisations. So what we try and do is give them something that they can actually do something with. You don't want them getting bombarded with lots of stuff that they have to then log and that kind of thing that they can't action.
So that fish looks skinny.
Well, quite. I think something like that is often something that comes in. And it's something, it might be that it's only arrived like 2 days ago, and give it a week, and give it a week of good feeding, it'll be all right as rain again as well. Or some people want to see like a ridiculous amount of enrichment in a tank that a fish is going to stay in for like a week. I think there's lots of different things that people reckon doesn't look right, but actually is permissible under the right circumstances, that kind of thing.
Yeah, and I think I can think of an example where I've seen a tang that grows very big sold to someone who's putting it in a Reefer 170, a little 2-foot cube, but it was sold when it was small, and right now it's not a problem. In the future, that's gonna be a problem.
I guess just to play the devil's advocate here, is you've also got to factor in the idea that people will often upgrade as well.
Yes.
So I would imagine that big tank behind you, Steve, and behind you, Matt, and to the right of you, Dan. I'm guessing you didn't start with one that big.
No.
And
Dan actually started with a bigger one.
Oh, really? Okay.
That's actually small.
You're bucking the trend, Dan. But yeah, I think this. This is the thing. A lot of people start small and then they do. A lot of people start small and then they upgrade. And part of that is, and there's all sorts of different reasons for that. Because you might be living in a one-bedroom flat for like a year or two, and then you move to like a bigger house or whatever. You might have a bit more money available, all that kind of thing. So I think it's a bit of.
You do hear them conversations though in a good fish store. They do say this is a tang that's going to get to this long. You planning to upgrade anytime soon? Like, good shops will advise, and they will.
Yes.
So don't go for that one. But if you go for that one, that one stays small.
Yeah, and this is again, I feel like a broken record saying this, but this is another thing where the diversity of trade is really. This is one thing where the diversity of trade really kind of is a strength when it comes to those kind of decisions, because more often than not, someone might go into a shop and be like, oh, I like the look of that thing. and that thing turns out to grow massive. But often there's enough choice available in the trade that there will be an alternative which also catches your eye, but is probably more suitable to the tank you've got and the lifestyle you need and that kind of thing.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah, perfect.
Definitely.
Yeah, cool.
Well,
very informative, Matt.
We've kept you on a bit longer than we promised,
it's all right.
but
it's all right.
Thank you very much for coming on. It's been fantastic.
Thanks, Matt.
Not a problem. Thank you very much. Good to chat to you all.
Appreciate it. Thank you, Matt.
Cheers.
Thanks, guys.
Cheers. See ya.
Bye.
See you soon.
Going to play a rhyming game.
Go on then. We'll play a rhyming game.
Deep narcotics are not an OATA member.
Oh, no, I knew that.
He got it.
Yeah.
Maybe a leaflet. Maybe a leaflet, Steve, in the door.
Yeah, but it was interesting, the parting comments we made about, a tang that we know is a Regal tang. So I was questioning whether I was going to put one in there. And one was sold to go in a Reef 170. Now, yeah, it was only small right now. So, technically, it's got more than enough room at the moment. And it probably will have for 18 months or more, maybe.
Yeah.
But it's not going to last forever in there. And I think that's the bit where people might report a shop and say, "Oh, that's really bad practice," and there's a little bit of a grey area at that point, I think.
I think it's when the shop's taking advantage of they need to sell a fish against someone that doesn't really have the means to look after it. That's where I think it's worth a report. Whereas if you're saying to someone, okay, it's 170, I know it's going to get bigger, you have that conversation, slightly different. You can't do that. They've told you they're going to upgrade. Right?
Yeah.
You have to believe what they're saying in some stance.
Yeah.
Did used to get the argument years ago. You probably still get it now, but some people used to say, and I used to know a few people that had that sort of mentality, but they'd be like, well, I know my tank's not big enough for the long-term goal of this fish growth, the size it's going to get to, but if I buy this fish and take it out of the shop holding tank that it's currently in, which isn't very big at all, because often they're not really that big. Although, to be fair, most shops these days have got bigger holding systems, especially reef, only shops. But most people would say, well, I'll take it and put it in my slightly bigger tank at home than what it was in the shop. Therefore, in the back of their mind, they think they're doing a good thing. Obviously, whether they've got the intention to actually upgrade the size of their tank down the line, that's where the grey area is for me. It's like, because the shop has to put that kind of responsibility on the owner, especially if they've kind of mentioned it, like what Matt said, like good shops will say, you do know these are going to get to a good size, what's your kind of plan long term and what sort of size tank are you looking to get? So, but there is that argument, isn't there? If I take a fish from a small shop in a tank, keep it in my slightly bigger tank for a year, is that more beneficial? Is that more kind? I mean, that's the kind of argument people used to have, years ago.
You've also got that thing of, oh, it won't grow as big in my tank because it stunts the growth. But
yeah,
don't really work like that, mate. But
No.
If I feed it just once a day, then it won't go half the size of what it should.
Yeah, just tell that to Harry Stripey.
Yeah,
yeah, he's a right chunk, isn't he?
Bloody ugly thing, Harry. Get rid of it. It's horrible.
Question for you guys. How much do you think, given that we were talking about corals making their way into the country through questionable means, and I gave my example of I would really like to be able to go to Holland or Germany, see some very sexy corals and bring them back with me. How much do you think a CITES permit costs?
Is this just for like 1%? So if it was like one coral,
one coral.
Is it just for like an individual thing?
As far as I'd need to check on this, no facts here, but I'm pretty sure that you pay, you list what you want to bring in,
right,
and you pay for that permit, and that permit lasts one time, and then it's done. But you could bring in
per import
stuff.
per
Yeah.
import.
It's going to be a good few hundred, if not a few grand, isn't it? I reckon.
I'm going less than that. I'm going 50 quid. Let's be honest, like my fish store will import 2-3 boxes of coral. If it's £1,000, would that be worth him doing? Because you've got to put it on each fish.
It depends how long that window's open for, doesn't it? Like
It's that import. So you buy a permit, and it's that shipment that the permit covers. You list everything you want to bring in on that one permit.
50 quid.
Should be pittance then.
50 quid-ish, I reckon.
Yeah, 40, 50 quid.
74 quid.
Not bad.
That's pretty. Yeah.
So my example of wanting to bring something back from Leonardo's Reef or somewhere.
It would be worth it.
Yeah. I could bring back 10 corals.
We'll go on a little bit of a jolly boys. We'll all take convoy of cars.
Yeah.
We'll get a CITES per car. We're all singing on dancing. We're all like split that 4 ways. It's 20 quid, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like, bit of fuel money, and away you go.
You've seen the size of my car, haven't you?
Yeah, exactly. Well, I reckon we can get 10 of them in there. 10 Dans.
For some reason, I want to picture you driving like a Fiat 500, Dan, just for the comedy factor.
I can't fit in them, honestly. I can't fit. The original minis. If you ever see me try and get in an original mini, horrendous.
I suppose it's probably 80 quid, but how long's the form? 34 pages long.
Oh yeah. So I don't have any doubt that this is. I'm actually going to have a look into this, and I'm going to try it. So when I used to keep fresh water, there was a big. There was a company that was just in Holland, so you could go to the Hook of Holland on the boat, and it was like 10 miles down the road, and they had this massive Malawi cichlid company, and I always wanted to go over there and get a load of them, and I actually applied for and obtained an import license for livestock. I've still got it.
Why don't that surprise me?
So
we're off to Holland soon then.
Yeah.
Yes.
And there is some nice shops. There's some nice shops out there. Dream Corals, Leonardo's Reef. Oh,
yeah.
Could you? What I don't understand is if it was that easy, why hasn't it been done? Or maybe it's just not been thought about.
My second side of it is, if it's this easy, why are people going to the risk of bringing some of the other stuff in?
Yeah.
You know, you see the people smuggling in American corals in flasks and stuff that keep them warm long enough for them to fly over with them, and you know, that's how we've got WWC corals available in different shops and things. So why risk that? And as Matt kind of, he was a little bit cagey about actually saying it, but I think, you know, illegally importing substances can carry a prison sentence, you know.
Yeah.
Why would you risk it if it costs you, even if you've got this registration fee, you know, 221 quid plus 74 quid for your license, better than going to jail.
Yeah. And even if that 200 quid is for life and you pay your 70 quid, but you can get Scully at
no. You wouldn't be able to get Scully because Scullies are not allowed to be imported.
Oh yeah, they're CITES, aren't they?
Yeah,
but
I don't know. Things that are allowed in that we just can't bring in from abroad without CITES.
You'd have like really nice examples of stuff you potentially could bring in, wouldn't you? So
yeah, be lovely.
That's why it'd be worth it. Yeah.
Yeah. So Rich says, because the forms probably don't get approved.
Yeah,
I'm going to try this. Don't know how long it's going to take me to get round to it, but I'm going to try this. We have an office in the Netherlands, so it's not unreasonable to think that I might be there in the near future, and I could try this out. I could get my CITES permit. I could go across, buy a load of stuff, and bring it back. Be interesting to see, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Might see an episode of the live stream with some bars in front.
Will you have? Well, I was going to say, if that does happen, though, Steve, would you have space for said shipment on the way back?
Got loads of space.
He'll be fine. He'll make space.
I was going to say, yeah.
Yeah, well, I noticed Elise has said in the comments earlier on, like, Jesus, Steve, your tank looks empty.
Those frag racks will be back out in no time.
Yeah. Talking about that, my sexy coral that I ordered was going to pick up on Sunday. I contacted them to find out when was a good time to come and pick it up, and they said, "Oh, really sorry, the wholesaler has had a problem with one of his tanks and killed everything." So I was seriously like rocking in the corner after going a month without buying any coral, only to find out that the coral that I'd ordered wasn't available. I then drove around, I think 110-mile round trip to some coral shops to try and desperately find a nice coral that I wanted to buy. I saw a very, very nice rainbow tracky, but it was 250 quid, and I couldn't justify it. But I did pick up this, which is a completely white Alveopora, which I thought was really unusual.
I don't think I've ever seen that colour.
I have seen it before. I've not seen one in person. I've seen pictures of them. And yeah, I was like, wow, that's a bit unusual. So when I was in Swallow Aquatic Rainley, and they had a couple of them, I thought, I'll have one of them.
You got to call it Casper, haven't you, for that?
Yes. Yeah, I don't give my corals names.
If you did.
Too many names to remember.
Yeah.
Especially for you. Jesus. You need like an inventory of names.
Yeah,
take a register in the morning, going through all the names of your corals. Good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning.
John said he used to have one of them.
Oh dear.
Interesting. Is that DD tank wet yet, John?
Oh yeah.
Let us know.
I'm hoping he's buying half of AAC when we go there. I'm hoping he's going, I'll have one of them, and I'll have one of them, and I'll have one of them.
Yep, that'd be good, wouldn't it?
Do you know who I am? I'm John Wright.
Yes. Wow. I would say there are a lot of corals we shouldn't have that are currently available in the UK. And I'm not talking just like someone's done, they've snuck like 5 in with a massive order. I've seen multiple places offering corals that we shouldn't have.
Whose tank breakdown was it? Come on. Whose was it?
Yeah. I mean, to keep that many of those corals in a tank breakdown.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How does that happen? That's what makes me wonder. And that's sort of a question I wanted to ask. But is there like these people that are on the door border looking in a bag? Do they have a picture of a Scully and what a Scully looks like? Do they not? How do they differentiate and go, yeah, no, yeah, no?
Yeah. And if you don't keep coral, could you tell the difference between a stressed-looking Scully and a Cynorina? Or a Wilsoni?
Or a Gonny to an Alvey?
Yeah, exactly. You know, it's almost impossible.
Yeah. One thing I will say though, I know this is like going out the country, but if you think just one thing, look how many cars go AWOL out the country every single year. Like by the thousands leave on containers, get loaded on, and they are gone. I know they're going out, but the point is they're going somewhere. And it's like, I don't really see how it would be that difficult for the roles to be reversed for corals and other stuff. I mean, I was thinking actually, would private airplanes, maybe that might be a sneaky way in, because I'm pretty sure when you fly private, the stipulations of you boarding, turning up, getting on the plane, it's a lot less restricted. And I think it does depend on who you are, though, to be fair.
It does have the same requirements, but I wonder if there is a level of a lesser level of effort put into checking things for people arriving on a Learjet compared to someone that's come over on Ryanair or EasyJet.
Especially if they're classed as important people, I'm guessing. But I'm sure if King Charles wanted to sneak some corals in, I don't think he'd have a hard time doing it, would he? Really?
He'd probably cite he's exempt.
Probably. I've got a friend that works in private aviation, and he says he works with a lot of famous people, and he says they don't even check their own boarding pass, like their boarding pass, and their passport gets given by the driver. They're in the car.
Yeah.
If they have to ask, they'll see them through the window. Some of them don't even. Yeah. When you're rich, money talks, doesn't it? Like, don't worry about them torches and that scully, and don't worry about
that. Yeah. I mean, they're probably less concerned with the odd scully coming in as opposed to 15 kilos of heroin or something.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
And a lot of these was probably, no, that's a symphilia, that's fine, don't worry about it.
Yeah. I always thought it was called a prison pocket, but a diplomatic pouch is, I guess, a different name for it.
Yeah, prison pockets, how I know it. Some are bigger than others.
So what are you trying to say?
When you're a giant, it's bigger.
What have you guys been up to this week?
Dan?
Mixed bag really, reefing wise. So I think the back of I don't know why I'm laughing because like the back of last week's stream.
You're gonna cry, aren't you?
I've already done that. I did that on the Thursday morning when after last week's live stream. I came down in the morning and my youngest daughter was looking in the tank and she was like, "Where's the firefish?" And I did notice, like, after the stream, he was kind of going under the rocks and, there's a nice bit of room under there. And he was only very small and very thin. So I was looking and I thought, he must just be under the rocks. So I didn't think anything of it. About 20 minutes later on, I came back to feed the tank. And on the other side of this tank, I had at the time, I had the Jecod wave controller pump controller just sat on the desk to the side of the tank, and it was like at a slight angle. I was just sat there after I fed the tank, because I always feed the tank and sit there and just watch the fish and make sure they're doing what they're supposed to be doing. And I looked underneath the wave controller and there was the filefish, and I was like, how's that even got out? So you start looking, don't you? So I looked at that. So I had the glass lid on, which is the UNS one made for this tank. And I did previously state that there is a ever so slight gap around the edge. And it's a very tight tolerance. But because I've got a wave maker on the backside, the tolerance at the back of the tank is obviously it's a slightly bigger gap, because obviously it's the thickness of what a cable is. And I'm assuming that's about sort of 4 or 5 mil. It's not a lot. Don't get me wrong. It isn't a lot. And the side of the tank that he'd come out, he must have come out of that side. So I was like, oh my God, like that's like literally I've had that fish for, I don't know, he was in there for 2 hours before the stream. And then, like, I don't know what point in the night he came out. The cat did spring to mind. I kind of thought, was the cat down here bothering the tank? So I was kind of thinking, could have been anyway, obviously the firefish, to be fair, it was very, very thin, and he could have possibly got out of this said gap. So I didn't think anything of it.
Have you sold the cat?
I'll dispose the body.
The cat?
Of the firefish, not the cat. But then, so then I went and grabbed a coffee, and I came back in, and Charlotte, my wife, had just walked in, and she was like, "What's that on the floor?" This was the same morning. And I was like, "What do you mean, what's that on the floor?" And she was like, "Oh my God, that's a fish." And I was like, "What? Like, what is, like, what is going on? So I looked on the floor, and it was only the orange spot goby was actually on the carpet. So he'd actually made it out past the same gap. Now, this is where I was like, my mind, I was already questioning the firefish for a start, but the goby, I was like, what the hell is going on? So I took my small little pinky and I actually went to put it through the gap, this said gap, and I could not fit. And I know you're going to probably say something about the size of my little pinky, but I tried to put it through this gap, this sort of 4, 5, it must have been like 4 or 5 mil. The thickness of the cable is not a lot. And I did actually, so when I put the lid back on, I do actually push it up against the back to make it even like less of a gap. Because I'm always, you know, when you've been reefing and fish keeping for yonks like I have, you always, in the back of your mind, you're always thinking, what's going to get out? How's it going to get out? So I thought, how the hell's it got out? Because he was a good sized fish. I wouldn't say he was nowhere near the same slenderness as the firefish. Anyway, I couldn't believe it. So at that point, obviously, I checked because I had the fairy wrasse and I had the mandarin as well. The panda damsel was still fine, and so were the other two. So the fairy wrasse and the mandarin were fine. But yeah, it wasn't a great morning. After that stream, I was a bit like deflated. I was already really annoyed at that lid. I'd already kind of said it in one of my update videos that I wasn't that impressed with it. It was really heavy for a start, so I know for a fact there's no way the fish could have lifted the lid up to get out. It's not going to happen. It's really, really heavy. So it must have just been either spooked by the cat, they just jumped for one of them things. Maybe it was the other fish being in the tank that maybe caused some sort of discrepancy. I don't know. But anyway, after that, I think I messaged you and Matt, didn't I? And I said about it. I just said I've had a right crap morning, so I was just gutted. I hate losing fish, and I hate losing fish that way. So 2 things happened the same morning. So well, one thing happened straight away. So that morning I went and put the door back on this room because the door's been off this room for probably the last 2-3 years. So I went and put the door back on so I could keep the cat out of this room, particularly at night time. I've also started doing it in the day because I just don't want anything going on with the tank when I'm not here or if no one's in the house. I've yet to set up a camera. I've also got a camera to set up to actually monitor this when I'm not here. So I put the door back on. That was the first thing. I was like, that's the least I can do. And then I was sort of umming and ahhing with the lid option. So I originally looked at the LDA lid, quite expensive. Didn't really want to do that yet. And then in the end, I went and brought the DD lid. But then I was having a bit of discrepancy between the size of this versus the kits that DD do. So the smallest one they do is 75, but the actual length of this tank up to the filter section is 80. So I was kind of fettling around trying to work out whether I could get away with the smaller one or whether I'd need the bigger one. Anyway, in the end, I went for the smaller set. And because of the offset of the angled edges, I've managed to get it to fit. Didn't really have to do a lot of trimming. So yeah, I fitted that properly.
Is there just a little gap but on the back edge?
No, so what I've done now, so on the back edge, I've actually, so it's not it's not going to pass any like, you know, design awards, but I've just cut a little slit into the actual piece going across the rear, and it's just enough for the cable to go through without it snagging, without it cutting into it, yada yada yada. But yeah, and I've put also on the back end of it, I also put the DD feeding hatch, so I've got that on it, so I can actually just take that off and, you know, dispense some food and yada yada yada. But yeah, so I did that. DD lid fitted, but gutted about the fish. Off the back of that, my panda damsel.
What did you do with the fish?
Straight in the bush.
Straight in the bush. No, they just, unfortunately, they just went into my waste disposal bin, so they didn't get a.
Not in the freezer.
I didn't need to keep it to do an autopsy. I kind of realised what killed them, and it was just lack of water. So, yeah, so I was proper. Yeah, I wasn't very happy, as you can imagine, and I don't like losing fish. I don't think anyone really does, but yeah. So the lids fitted. You know, there's no, and it is, to be fair, it does fit really well. I should have just gone with the DD lid to begin with. The only reason why I wasn't a massive fan is because when I built the one on my 3-foot water box, I just found the whole thing a pain in the backside. I didn't really enjoy building it. So in my mind, I was thinking back to that 3-foot water box. I was thinking I don't really want to build it again because I just hated every minute of doing it. But because this is
Imagine building one for that.
Oh, Steve, I don't know. Honestly, there's such a, and then if you've got to do the bracing bar across the middle as well, it's like, oh my days, like leave it out. Because this is such a small tank. Actually, it's actually really good, and I'd highly recommend it for a small aquarium. But yeah, doing one like yours, Steve, that's like nightmare fuel for me. That is.
I was actually really impressed. Because I got the D&D one because I wanted the overhang rather than the Red Sea one that kind of sits in and then has little tabs poking out. I cut it, and the first cut I did, it wouldn't actually fit in. I went and did another little bit of a cut, put it on, and there is the tiniest amount of lateral movement left to right. There is none front to back at all.
Yeah.
But it's not enough to move past the lip, so it's completely covered whatever way you push it. But yeah, when I did it for my 250, I made the D&D one and the Red Sea one, and I hated both of them. Hated doing it. I really hated it. I was dreading doing it for this tank, but it actually turned out pretty easy.
But I will honestly, for anyone who's got these UNS tanks, don't even waste your time. 2 in the glass lid, don't even go there. Freshwater, saltwater, don't even waste your time. Just go for a DD one, because I think the glass one was like 30 quid, and then this DD kit was like 36 quid. It's like why, I don't even know why I bothered going that route, to be fair. I think I was just curious to see what the fit and finish was like. But yeah, and then the downside to that is, although the tank's doing really great, but then since the orange spot goby's gone, my sand bed has started to look like utter shite. So I'm getting like quite a lot of heavy brown patches from the lights at the minute. So I'm having to go back to manually giving my sand a little turnover and basically doing the job that the goby was doing. So
wonder what you're buying at ASA. You're buying a firefish and a goby.
Yeah, that'd be nice. And maybe
Or a sand sifting star, that ain't going to jump out.
No, that's what I mean. Is honestly that. And also, the sad thing is, like the firefish, my youngest daughter really liked, which is why I got one. That lasted an evening for her to look at, and then the orange spot goby. Not only was it one of my favourite things I've ever kept, but it was also Charlotte's favourite thing. So, and she keeps saying to me, since it's not been in here, because it was so active, just around the tank all the time, she actually misses seeing it, which is sad, really. But then on the other side of that, the flip side of that, I have now got the Mandarin, and he is out a lot, and it's quite nice when he's out and about. But yeah, it's a bit of a crap crap end to last week, but we learn, we get from it. As I said, the door's back on. I've got a new lid. Hopefully I don't have any more escapies. The only thing I've got to say is the panda damsel turned savage on my fairy wrasse. So he has calmed down, but at the end of last week, after what had happened with the previous 2 fish, I was like, I don't want any aggression in this tank, so I think I'm going to rehome the panda damsel. He has been really good, actually. The last 3-4 days, he's been a model citizen, but I think I'm still going to move him on, because I think I'm just done with damsels of any type. So Chris, who is So Reef, he's got the same tank as this, and he's got a couple of other reef tanks. He's going to have the panda damsel, because he was after one anyway when I got the pair. But he's actually going to take him. He's got a different tank that he's going to go in first, and he's actually got quite a bossy fish in there, so he thinks he'll do quite well. Hopefully he will, but yeah, he knows the whole backstory. But hopefully he'll be going tomorrow evening. So how's
your new product?
What do you mean new product?
The one that there's a video for that I haven't watched yet.
Yeah, so I did set up the that was the only positive thing that did come off the back end of the sort of last week about. Yeah, I did get the new DD function pump out and up and running. It's not now sat in the box on a shelf for eternity. So yeah, I've got that set up. I've done the video, released it. To be honest, the video wasn't really the quality of where I wanted to be. The lighting was utter shite, a bit like it is now. Actually, I need to get a better lighting for over in this corner. But I did. To be fair though, for me, so this is the thing. Whenever I buy something, generally I like to see someone having set one up to see it working, see what you're getting. Especially with the controller, I know the function pumps are out there in the wild and have been for a while, and they are a bit like they're almost identical. But it was still nice for me just to put that out because I've got a feeling people are probably going to be interested in just the functionality of the controller more than anything. At the end of the day, it's a wave maker, and they all do a relatively similar job. But honestly, initial impressions really good. The build quality looks really good. A lot better than the Hager types of similar that I've done prior. I think the best selling point for me is one, the price, and just the fact they've modernized the controller. So I know it's not Wi-Fi Bluetooth, but honestly, the adjustment you've got in it and how quick it is to do it, you don't need to connect it to a phone. It's just not relevant. And the nicest thing about it is just being backlit and the fact you can adjust how bright you want it. But yeah, good product, amazing from DD, and I suspect I would like to get my hands on the lights at some point. I don't know like when or how that's going to occur, but I would like to try out on something maybe in the future, try one of those lights to see just how good they are for the money. But yeah, I think they're I must say I think they're marginally more expensive than the Jekod SOW range, but I think because they're just sort of modernized with the controller, they're probably worth the extra little bit of money, but they're not I think most models they're like £5 or £10 more, so you're not talking massive bucks. But yeah, if you're looking to upgrade, have a look at the new DD pumps.
Nice.
Excellent.
That's it. That is me out.
What about you, Matt?
Nothing. To be fair, that's not even a lie. It sort of is, but it isn't. I'm trying to. So obviously, a while ago I had flatworm issues. Did a lot of treatment. I did a treatment on that. Then I had cyano, so then I was battling that. So at the moment, and since probably the last time I've been on, what was the last time I was on? A month ago, maybe. Just for my birthday, wasn't it? So 3-4 weeks ago. I've pretty much tried to stay hands off. So all I've really done is water change, test. Struggling with a bit of phosphate at the moment. I suspect because I've added rock, so obviously the side the Zoas isn't there anymore. I've put a lot more rock in. I've split hammers up. I've created more of a rock that sort of goes into a bay which is covered in hammers and torches. I think that's probably leaching a little bit of phosphate. It's live rock that then died and now have been recycled to put back in. So I wonder if that's where it's coming from. But other than that, it's doing all right. One torch that did what got the worst of the flatworm is slowly. I've never seen a coral die so slowly. It's like, I don't want to throw you away because in case you live, but it's got like the slowest bailout, unbelievable. And I've took it off the rocks, now sitting on the sandbed. And it's like, it's got 2 heads. It's now down to 1.5 heads. But it's like, you know, like when they normally bail out and they normally bail out fast, it's like really, really, really slow. All the rest are fine. Obviously, when I took everything apart, we dipped stuff. I won't replace that torch because I've now realised that the torches are in there are doing really, really well, and they need a lot of landscape because they're quite sweet. they're quite sweepy.
Yes.
And I've now got to that point where I am. I'm just looking for the right corals, a bit like you, Steve, when we spoke the other day. I'm now looking for. Yeah, it was a bit. I'm now looking for the right corals. I don't want to just stick everything else in it. I'm after certain hammers now. I'm after certain. I've got loads of gonnies, loads of alveoporas. I've got a little bit of room for sticks. It has now. I'm looking at it thinking, right, what's next? What's next? What's next? I'm planning, or I'm thinking about planning some pre-order purchases for AAC and Fishwise. I'd like another yellowtail tamarin, Don't know if I can decide on one. I don't know if I can decide on one yet. I just don't know.
Yes.
I may go just a goby and a mandarin. My dynamics in the tank is quite good after adding a couple of wrasse. Don't really want to upset the apple cart. Don't want to get too greedy. It might just be a couple of sand dwellers and leave it at that. But no, I'm at the point now. I'm like, once the corals are all added and I'm full, what do I do now? Do I buy another tank? I'm like, what do I do now? Like, I'm not upgrading for a while. I want it to go out. I potentially will probably just take stuff out I don't like anymore, which is what I did with the Zoas and stuff. I've got her tank that I've got ideas for her tank because she's so slow deciding to make a decision. I'm thinking odd in the vertebrates and odd corals, something like an ACAN tank or something like that. But we'll see. All right. Yeah, I'm enjoying it. I'm looking forward to the meetup.
Yeah, I saw that.
Ouch.
Shocking.
Lovely. Yeah. I'm looking forward to the meetup, looking forward to catching up with people. Obviously, we've got a couple of meetups coming. We've got the AAC one on the 28th of February. It'd be good to see so many people. And then we've obviously got the Mansfield one. Mansfield one in April, which again, I know nothing about that shop, so I'm really, really excited to go see what it's all about. Still meet up with loads of different people. Because for me, since the last meet, you obviously stay in contact with loads of regular people. But there's other people that are so busy in life, the only time you really get to catch up with them is at that meet.
At the meet.
And it's like, oh, how's your tank going? How's this going? And they've got so much to tell you, because you haven't seen them. So, yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. I actually can't wait. Looking forward to the Friday night, Saturday. And then obviously on the Mansfield meet, doing the Friday and the Saturday again. So come along.
Yeah.
Yes, please do.
Excellent.
Steve, have you obviously you bought coral? Done anything else?
Quickly, just good luck to Scotty. I think that's the way to do it, though. Lots in at the same time before they get too established in where they're going to go.
Yeah, that's normally the way because of territorial, isn't it?
Yeah.
Go that way. Do that way.
They'll probably be okay. To be fair, I was able to add some along the way, and you get like a couple of days of squabble, and then they seem to just settle. I think tangs are generally very good at establishing a hierarchy, but yeah, putting 5 in at the same time, no worries. I'm sure they'll be fine.
Yeah, it's north of Nottingham.
Just put a postcode in chat as well.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, we all stand local, so if it's a far one for most people. Come along.
Yes. Yeah, I'm staying up the Friday night,
and then
going back Saturday.
Very good.
What are you going to say, Steve?
So I have started to investigate legal proceedings on a licensing issue. There's someone that's been using my likeness to market things. So yeah, I need to have a word about this Steve's lipstick coral.
And what a pretty coral it is.
It's made me chuckle.
I actually saw that a couple of weeks ago, and I thought of you, and I was like, oh.
Yeah. So I need to have a word with Christian and talk about my fee for talking about my lips.
Are you coming up fancy dress, Steve, on the Friday?
No, I'm not falling for that again. You can catch me out once, but you ain't going to catch me out again.
Are you coming to the Friday for AAC, or have you?
No, so I have a bit of a challenge with that because I'm away all week, returning on the Friday evening with work, and then early doors, my wife is out to a horse show all weekend. So as it is, I've still got to try and blackmail my daughter into coming with me to the reef meet.
You not take her around her friends or leave her around the in-laws or just put her in a bush or something.
We're in the bush.
Yeah. Well, I was thinking about like maybe just kind of locking her up in the basement.
Or that,
Yeah,
Surely
that
she
might
can go
work.
around her friends for the day, can't she? Or
Yeah, that might be the best approach. But
yeah. You
got
got to be there.
some
You got to
time.
be there at 8 o'clock in the morning because I need to be there for 10.
Yeah. That'll be. It'll be. Why don't you go and stay around this Friday night?
Yeah, sleepover sounds good.
And you can also
Yeah.
say to her, "Oh well, on the Saturday she can stay at ours and we'll get dinner." And then you've dwindled an overnight. Come back, she's out your hair. Leave you alone for the Saturday. Yeah, it'd be good. It'd be good to meet up and share some random stories with some people.
Are you contacting AAC, Steve, to try and get anything in? Reserve anything? Anything that we're just gonna see?
No. I mean, I'm getting very, very particular about what I want.
Do you know what you
And
want?
I know the kind of look that I'm going for. And unfortunately, I think I'm going to have to wait for fellow hobbyists to get to a point where they need to frag those,
Stuff.
because the ones that I'm looking at are way out of my budget. So,
Any fish? Any more fish?
male mandarin.
Okay.
And then I don't know, maybe a sex line wrasse for the sump. For the frag sump. Just to keep the corals kind of tidy. Yeah, nothing else really. Now I've got the long nose, I probably won't try and put a copper band in as well. I think that would be a recipe for disaster. So yeah, I don't think there's anything really that's leaping out at me that.
When has that ever stopped you?
Yeah. I mean, if I'm in the shop and I see something, I'll be like, "Oh, that one's shiny."
Yeah.
Hopefully, hopefully at the point when you actually really want a copper band, then hopefully I might be in a position to have the yellow long nose back. But we'll see.
Yeah, I had a couple of bad experiences with copper bands as well. And it's one of those things where how many times do you try it before you think it's not
worth? Yeah,
it's not worth doing that to another fish. So
that's the only reason why I went for the yellow long nose butterfly. Just safer bet, and yeah, still a really, really nice fish. That's the one. That and the powder blue are the two fish that I miss the most. But I love seeing them in your Red Sea, just living the dream.
Yeah.
Would you consider one fish I can highly recommend is a dwarf pink fairy wrasse? Amazing fish.
Beautiful fish that is. That's what Julie's got one as well. Beautiful fish.
Yeah, Julie's is. To be fair, I saw hers on the tank tour and I was just like, that is lovely. But then obviously, in the back of my mind, although mine's very small, he is going to get bigger. So I would have to do something about it down the line. Goes back to the conversation earlier on, doesn't it? Really, but yeah, hopefully we'll have an upgrade down the line when that happens. But yeah, I do need to contact AAC to try and see if I can get a couple of fish in. It's just whether they're coming in on the import. There's a couple that aren't at the moment, so
you do it now. If you do it now, Dan, you'll have some wiggle room. It gives them a couple of weeks, doesn't it?
Yeah, if they see anything, if they see them come in, it'd be nice to grab one. There's a couple I want to inquire about that are available. I just want to inquire about cost, because if it's like 250, 300 quid for one fish, then maybe I won't go that route.
What if it's a £1 fish?
If it's a £1 fish, then it will be very, very good £1 fish.
I was hoping someone was going to get that reference.
To be fair, that bloke, it's quite a sad story, wasn't it, to him? He actually got deported, didn't he? Really sad.
Oh, did he?
Yeah, if you look into that bloke, him getting like blown up famous with that song, They found out he was basically didn't have the right credentials, and he got deported. Like, really sad, really, really sad.
Oh,
But you can't forget that guy. Ever forget that guy?
no.
But
Like the lucky man on holiday.
Yeah. Very good, very nice.
He's a good seller, though. Good seller.
Yes.
Yeah.
Glasses, more glasses. It's the man.
Yes. I don't think I've been up to anything else really. Been a bit busy with work, but not mentally busy. So,
Any
yeah,
any 3D printing projects going on at the minute?
not right now. I reprinted the ones for you after Every lost.
Thank
Still
you.
haven't had any compensation from them. After they completely lost my parcel or your parcel. I did some prints for Baby Dave that I've got in my coral container, my little, the lunchbox insulated thing.
I was worried you were in your pocket purse then.
No, not in my diplomatic pouch. And I did the random flow generators for Lee's tank. I was a little bit worried about. I haven't got one here. I was a little bit worried about them. Yeah, I posted them up to him.
No, you're meant to tell him he can't have them unless he comes to the meet. He's got to come to the meet.
Oh no, he's already got them. I sent them ages ago.
Oh,
but the bit that fits over the nozzle, the pipe work, has got 3 like little nipples on it that make it a tight fit. And on my one, I had to actually get a scalpel and take them off to make it fit. And I thought, well, I don't want to take them off and make it loose for Lee's tank, but also if I don't take them off, it's not going to be the easiest task for him in the world. And then I thought, if he does start doing YouTube videos again, that could make an amusing YouTube video of him slicing a big hole in his leg, trying to take these off. So in the end, I left them on.
All I can imagine is water hitting the ceiling because he's trying to get this bloody random flow generator on, and he's up here like this.
Yeah.
Oh well, he'll have to let us know then, if he's fitting them. But
yeah, I don't know if he's still in or not. Whether he's fitted them, whether they've worked, whether he's amputated a leg with a scalpel blade or anything accidentally.
Hopefully they've worked.
Yeah.
Well, if you are coming, make sure, because the only thing I will say before we go is if you do come to the meet, obviously
bring your credit card.
Yeah, bring that. But also if you're near Drippy, stay away because you're going to buy something like ridiculous. But please, because I have so many conversations with people, and I feel bad sometimes because I'm like, who's that guy? Remember when we went to Finest, I was like, I had a really good conversation with him, but that's not, you just instantly start talking. It's not, oh, I'm this person or I'm that person. And yeah, just like a name to just say, I am this person. Like, don't feel that everyone is approachable. Like, I'm this
Everyone
person.
needs a name tag.
Yeah, this is what I'm saying. Like, who are
like,
you?
This is my actual name, and this is my name on YouTube.
Yeah.
Or Instagram or Facebook.
Yeah.
Because it's so like say we had that conversation with that person in Finest, and I'm like, I walked away and I don't even know his name, and I had a really good conversation. It's like, oh, where's that gone? But yeah, please do and it's not trying to be like, don't try and feel awkward about it. Just say, oh, I'm this person, because that just makes us know who we're having conversations with, and then when you pop up in a live stream, we're like, oh, nice to meet you, good to talk to you. How's this getting on?
Speaking of someone I'm hoping to see again, did you see that Yarrick had got his new Nios tank wet? Did you see that? Yes.
Yes.
He's going to be like this.
I had a few conversations with him when he was in the process of getting it wet.
Nice.
There were some challenges. Let's just put it that.
Looking forward to hearing about him.
Yeah. It looked. Wow, you put a picture up of it filled, and it looked really nice. So I'm sure that's going to be a masterpiece in a couple of years or so. But yeah. Very good. Looking forward to seeing him again, actually. And yeah, like Matt said, looking
Yeah.
forward to seeing some new people this year, because last year was a hoot. So I'm hoping this will be the same this year. But yeah, if you're free, come down. AAC, first meet.
Yep.
All about community. It's not about egos. Come along, get stuck in, and just buy. Come and say hello and buy shit, corals and fish. That's what normally happens.
You say sorry, loads of
Shitload
and then
fish
corals. Yeah, they came too close together. Then it sounded like you said buy a load of shit coral.
I normally end up walking away saying I'm not going to get anything, and I end up coming away bloody loads. So yeah.
You end up coming away with dry goods, like 200 quid worth of dry goods.
I know, because I normally go there and go, I need that. Oh, I need that. Because I'm so bad for it. And me and you have been before, Steve. We walk into store, I walk out and I go, on the way out, oh, shit, I needed that. And I didn't even go there for what I needed.
I have a list on my phone now. I have in my notes section, and I just add to it constantly. I need this, I need this, I need this. And then, like, if I'm at a shop that would like Niles salt, if I go to a shop that sells Niles salt, I just buy a box. Yeah. Because if not, I have to buy it, and then someone has to deliver it. Yeah. Yeah.
Tom, when you're listening, name badges. Not being at school. I'm this guy.
Well, working for a company that prints labels, maybe I can just bring a roll of labels and a pen.
That's part of the reason, though. You know, the Reefers Network T-shirt. So when I ordered my original one, that's why I had the Dan's Reef printed on it.
Because there's so many really fucking tall reefers out there. We weren't sure whether we were going to be able to identify you.
A lot of people said to me, they're like, "Oh, Tom's giving you a custom one," and I said, "No, it's not custom." I said, "You can actually add it. You can add it on and you can do it anywhere on the shirt." But I just thought, if I do it on the front, at least people haven't got to ask me like who I am, you know, what I am.
Yeah.
Some people might not want to speak to me, and that's fine. That's fine.
They walk up, they go, "Who are you?"
Yeah, just looking at my kneecaps, wondering how this guy is. Yeah, but no, I mean it would be handy sometimes. You do look at some people and you think, I'm sure I know them, and I need to go and speak to them to find out who they are. But yeah.
But if you had a name badge, because online, if someone had a name badge, you go, I spoke to him, or he's on the live stream, without knowing a face or a name. You're like, do I know you?
I was messaging someone on Insta. So I was on not Instagram, on a WhatsApp group, and I was talking to someone, and we ended up taking the discussion off of the group and just talking separately about some coral that he might have coming up. And we were talking away, and I was like, "Oh yeah, I might do this, and I want to go and do that because I want to record some content for the YouTube channel." He's like, "Oh, what's your YouTube channel?" And I told him, he's like, "I've spoken to you in person before."
God's sake. That's what I mean. This is what I'm saying. I think it's absolutely mind blowing. And like, unless you're Dan, who's really tall, easy to spot, or unless you're Dave, really short, in a pram, like you're not. Everyone else just blends in.
Yeah.
And if you're shy, having a badge to say who you are, the people that will say, "Oh, I know that person. I'll go and speak to them."
Yes, exactly. So I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna bring stickers and a pen.
I'm terrible. I don't know what you two are like in your professional careers, but I'm terrible with names, like really bad. Like when I used to start new workplaces, if I was around more than 10 people, I'll be all over the place for, like a good couple of weeks, sometimes a month. And, like you need to go and speak to that person about something. And it would be like, how can I approach them without calling their name? That's the level of my sort of memory for people's names. But to be fair, what we'll say is when I actually know people and I've spoken to you a couple of times, I always remember the names. But yeah, like if it's like a first meet thing, I have to almost like we joked about it on here, didn't we? You have to literally write people's names down just so you don't forget what their abbreviated name is on the streams and stuff. It's a minefield, absolute minefield.
Yeah. Try working for an Icelandic company. Not only have you got loads of people's names to remember, but they're things like Egill and Kurdir.
Yeah, you should be good. You should be good at the game then, Steve. I reckon you'll be good at it.
Yeah,
have enough practice.
See you all there, guys. I'm looking forward to
So
it.
Yes.
we're at the 2 hour mark. Anything else that you guys wanted to talk about tonight?
Not from me.
There's one quick question in the chat. Has anyone used Entice? Never even heard of it before.
Nope. Yeah.
No, I haven't heard of that.
I did read this one 2 or 3 times to make sure it wasn't something else that I was going to put up on the screen. But yeah, I mean, I've heard if you get like mysis with garlic, that can help. And I think, although it's not particularly nutritious, brine shrimp is normally a lot easier to get fish to eat, especially if you get live brine shrimp. So you can kind of start them on that and then mix in a bit of mysis live and then a bit of mysis frozen and kind of move them along like that. But yeah, that was my only thoughts on that subject.
You seen Scotty's comment?
That's what it's all about. That's what I said. That's what it's all about.
Wow.
I'll take it.
Steve's well over that.
Has he got a little book like Steve's got?
Well, Salty Banter Partners Special is going to be interesting. That's all I'm going to say.
I want to know how much I spent.
The question is, who spent more, you or Roxy?
Me, because still me, but she's catching.
I'm not saying whose bank account it's come out of. I mean, who's made the purchase?
Me, because I bought the system, so she's catching up.
Okay.
With corals, I'd say she's probably leading. But with equipment and stuff, that's normally me. So yeah. Oh, he's only 5 months in and he's 15 grand deep.
Wow.
Oh.
Started off well then. He's in it.
Keep that. That's the sort of thing you want to keep to yourself. Burn the evidence.
Come to the reef, mate, and we can all cry together.
Yeah,
do.
Do it in a safe space. That sort of information.
We can all talk between friends.
Yeah.
I think he did say, I'm sure he said his system's 1,400 litres, so it sounds like a big tank.
Wow.
Yeah. I'm sure he said 5 tanks in 1,400 litres. I read it and I was like, you'd be fine. Absolutely fine.
Yeah. And I think, given the size of that tank, then he's doing really well to have only spent 15 grand.
Agreed.
So yeah.
What's a grand at AAC on a weekend, eh?
Yeah, exactly.
Nothing.
No. And on that note, see you soon, guys.
Yeah. Thank you very much, gents.
Yes,
We'll see you next week.
Thank you all.
See ya.
Take care.